So a little while ago, I did a video going over exactly how troop distributions worked defensively, and particularly on the interactions and the mechanics explaining what happens when your troops exceed your max troops involved in defensive battle up here, and exactly how you can control those mechanics and manipulate them to your advantage. And in that video, I alluded to a follow-up video about going over other mechanics and things you're going to want to know when setting up and approaching defending against solos or rallies on your castles, and this is going to be that follow-up video. So first of all is a very, very basic point, and that is the only place that you can change your wall formation, your wall commanders and dragons will be through here in city defense to wall. This is mostly common sense, but I remember, especially in the early days when I was playing, a lot of people assumed that your wall formation in particular would mirror your most recently used formation. That is not the case. If you want to change your formation when defending your city, you'll have to go down here to defense, and then you'll be able to change your formation to whatever you so wish in here. And you could attack over and over with Spear Cav as your offensive formation, and if your defensive formation here is set as Cav Spear, then it will remain as such until you change it in this screen here. On the same note, your commanders here, this is the only place to set those participating commanders and your dragons as well. One thing to note before I move on from this point, this checkbox here will be by default unticked. If you have a Sapphire dragon, there is no negative whatsoever to ticking this box. It's only good if you tick it. So everyone realistically should tick this box, and I'm not really sure why it is unticked by default. It works exactly as it reads there. Basically, if you have both your dragons at home, it will defend of these two. But if you're solo attacking or rallying with this big dragon out, for example, if you have it unticked, only your second dragon there would participate in that fight. If you have it ticked, then your third dragon would come in and defend as well. But then even when you have it ticked, if both of these dragons are home, they will defend as normal. So there are no buggy interactions with that or anything like that. It's only positive if you tick this box here. The second thing you're going to want to know is the information I shared in that video previously about the troop distributions. I will link that video somewhere in this video right now. As a general overview though, you will have your max participating troops up here, and your troops will fill into this number from the highest troop tier down. So here all the T5s would fill into it, then all the T4s, and then it would repeat that process over and over again. It will repeat that process until a certain troop tier in total would exceed the maximum number here, and when it gets to that point, it will then equally distribute all available troop types of that tier into that remaining space. So if I had here 4 million of each melee T4, or even bows as well, after my T5s fill into it, I would have an equal amount of T4 Imp, T4 Cav, T4 Spear, and T4 bows on my wall when I defend. I would have no T1s, no T2s, no T3s, and unless I evacuate certain troops out of my castle, I would not have a bias to any certain troop type either. And again, if you want to know more about exactly how that works and how you can manipulate that in your favor, refer to the video I made previously on that topic. The third point is knowing exactly how the 3 different synergy types work with defensive setups. So if I go back to my wall in here, every player should be ideally aspiring to a synergy formation of weakness, bleed, or female if they can. This is obviously different if you are pure free-to-play. And if you are, it's a slightly more binary decision where you're just going to want to maximize your stats as best as possible and trying to hold as best as you can through that. If you are pure free-to-play, I think it's more to your advantage if you focus on just 1, maybe 2 troop types on your wall rather than 3. Reason being is total attack is much harder to find, at those pay levels, and also stats coming from the likes of attack and defense badges, health refinement, attack refinement, will relatively be much more influential to those players. You will, however, obviously then have to pick your battles a lot more, and if you're, say, full imp, and there's a full cavalry player around in your KVK, for example, you're going to really want to avoid that player. Those that do have access to the three main synergy types, the general rule of how the three synergy types benefit from defensive situations is that weakness is best, bleed is second best, and then female is the worst. That doesn't mean you can't have a good defense with a female build, particularly with the whale commanders like Cersei and Daenerys, but it is the most suboptimal. The reason for this is, if you've watched my videos previously, going into more depth on the female synergy, is the way commander damage gets reduced according to the amount of troop types you have present in a fight. So you can watch my videos where I go into this in more detail, but the general rule is if you have one troop type participating, you will deal 100% commander damage. If you have two participating, it's 50%. So your commander damage gets halved, and that's a huge amount of damage for the female synergy, obviously, since that is what Layla is primarily buffing. If you have 3 troop types, it will be 33% commander damage, and 4 troop types will be 25% commander damage. So for this reason, if you're set up like me, and you have the 3 melee troops in your city, which most players will obviously have, particularly for events, if you're going into AC, you're going to want to be reinforcing different rally leads. You're going to want to have a variety of troops, so you can reinforce a spear rally lead in a building, an imp rally lead in a building, a cav rally lead in a building. So you can't just go in with one troop type. So you're going to need all 3 to some degree. And in attacking scenarios, it's much easier to send just one troop type, whereas in defense, it's just not really possible to put only one troop type on your wall. Weakness, however, if you look at my wall here, so I have the 3 healers and Jamie. This means that I'm both stacking weakness stacks quicker and higher, because I now have 3 sources of weakness damage. So if I am, say, Imp Spear Cav here, I have A1, A2, A3, A4, A5 stacking weakness. I have B1, B2, B3, B4, B5 stacking weakness, and C1, C2, C3, C4, and C5 stacking weakness as well. So it's going to be going to much higher numbers much quicker, but obviously there's then also all 3 troop types benefiting from those additional stacks as well. So if I had only Drake, for example, he would be stacking the weakness stacks, and my spears would be benefiting from the additional damage. But if I didn't have Lats and Enzo here, they would just be normal attacking, and they would not be benefiting at all from those weakness stacks. So triple weakness is, I'm hesitant to say the best formation or the best setup for a wall defense, but it benefits most from the situation that defending your city actually puts you in. If you are only single or double weakness, though, you will lose some value, like I said. It will still be better than female, though, obviously. And bleed would be between the two of them, because it doesn't have commander damage to be diluted by the multiple troop types. Bleed mechanics from the likes of Rhea only tend to proc from your front line, so they're not hugely benefiting from your second and third lines attacking. One benefit they do get, however, is if you have Dragon Flame as the Dragon follow-up skill for the bleed synergy, that will proc a lot quicker if you have a second and third line, and you can snowball damage very quickly through that. It's not hugely relevant, but compared to something like Dragon Follow-Up, you will get significantly more damage from 3 lines with a bleed setup, significantly quicker as well than you would with something like Female with Follow-Up. So in terms of how each synergy benefits from the situations that defending puts you in, it will be, I'd say, multi-weakness, then bleed, then single weakness, then female. There are obviously a lot of variables to that, like if you're being attacked by someone with Kevin, triple weakness will lose a lot of value there. If you have a Cersei and you're maining a female setup, female will gain a lot of value there. So it's not a rule that's set in stone, but that is generally how it will go. The fourth thing to note will be exactly how casualty rates work. So if you're defending and you get attacked, you will by default have a 100% hospitalization rate. So it's a 0% casualty rate, whereas the attacker will have a by default 40% casualty rate. So the numbers here in total are a little bit skewed because of his dragon skills, but you see there, ally mortality base rate is 0%. That means 100% of my troops, before additional buffs come into play, will go to hospital, and only after my hospital capacity is reached will I then have dead troops. The attacker, however, no matter how many dead they have or defeated they have in total, 40% of their defeated troops will die immediately, and then 60% will go to hospital. And of course, once their hospital capacity is reached and exceeded, then any that would have been wounded in that 60% would then die also. So because of this, being a defender is hugely advantageous, because obviously wounded troops are a lot more ideal than dead troops. And if you can manipulate situations into you being the defender, say garrisoning a solo attack, even if they, say, defeat 600k of your troops and you're the defender when garrisoning someone, if you defeat even 400k of their troops as the defender, they will have more dead than you would. And even though they would win that fight theoretically, you would have killed more troops of theirs than they would have killed of yours. So in my mind, I would still realistically view you as the winner in that scenario. On the same note of casualty rates, when defending, you can share losses across multiple people's hospital capacities if other people reinforce with the lowest tier of participating troop type that is on the front line. So here, for example, there is 1.74 million wounded troops. Obviously, it's literally impossible to have 1.74 million hospital capacity as a single player. So here, Denkura was defending with Imp frontline, and then multiple people sent him T3 Inf, and you see here in this third column, these are wounded troops. So I received about 550k wounded, Hussar received about 600k wounded, and similar to what I was saying previously there about only having deaths after the hospital capacity is exceeded, you would have to exceed both the defending players' hospital capacity there, but also their reinforcers' hospital capacities up to all their reinforced troops as well to have any actual straight kills with this rally. So again, defending is hugely advantageous in that you can stack a lot of factors in your favor because the attacker is just naturally going to have deaths on their side of the fight a lot easier than you are as the defender. And I touched on it a bit with the garrisoning point, but on report bases, the winner or loser of a fight is not determined by the power difference, it's only determined by the total defeated troop difference here. So on this saved report, Ortizio loses ever so slightly more power than me, yet I lost the fight. This is because he lost about 1.3 million troops and I lost about 1.6 million. And this is because he just hit, so yeah, like he killed about 1 million T3 Imp, whereas I only killed about 500k T3. So that swung the power difference a bit more in my favor. This isn't too relevant in this situation, but it can be very relevant in, for example, rallying a T1 bow trap. I could kill 5 million troops of a T1 bow trap, and because of that, I will pretty much always be listed here as the winner of the fight. But if they killed, say, 2 million T5, no matter what the report says there, they are the winner in that situation because the power difference and the speed up and resource cost of me rebuilding that compared to them rebuilding that is hugely weighted in their favor. So it's not as simple as reading up here who is winner and who is the loser. And the final point I want to make, which is just something to maybe think about, is exactly how your wall is set up for practical situations. So what I mean by this is if I attacked with, say, this formation, and then someone else attacked me as I had this whole formation out somewhere else, my wall would then be auto-filled with other commanders. and I wouldn't defend of this at all. So something you can do is have your main attacking formation be one thing, and then your main defending formation be something else. And this can sort of safeguard you against having your Lord out with a main synergy. Obviously, your Lord is going to be locked into your wall no matter what, so you would want some overlap there. But I could, for example, say attack with Patello as my Lord in a bleed infantry formation with Rhea, Sonara, Andrea, and Kevin as an example. And then even when I'm attacking with that, if someone else hit me with a solo attack whilst my Lord is out, trying to hit me whilst I'm weak, I would still have Jamie and his free healers on my wall to defend a lot better than it would have been if this whole formation was just being replaced. This might not be hugely relevant to a lot of players, but if you are, say, a mid-spender and around decently big accounts which can hit you with solos, if they are playing correctly, they will look for any opportunity for your Lord to be out to smack you immediately, and this will help you just safeguard against that in case you ever get put in that position. And those are my 7 things to remember. There are obviously a lot of things that go into a successful or failed defense. You will often just be at the mercy of your attacker, particularly if there are huge spending disparities. And as always in GoTWiC, you will want to pick your battles, and that will be the only thing you really have control over. That and setting yourself up as best as you possibly can.